Jenny Wilkson is here and she's going to share more with us about Partners in Print. It has been a wonderful, wonderful week for Partners in Print. I will not give away any of the exciting secrets because that's why Jenny's here to share. There's lots of exciting news. But I do want to say I'm so excited for what it means for us as a Letterpress community and another space for us to come together, share, and have conversation. Jenny has made a 20-year career of overseeing the operations, curriculum, and community outreach of the Letterpress department at the School of Visual Concepts in Seattle, Washington. In response to the impacts of COVID-19, she recently helped to evolve that program into Partners in Print, a new decentralized organization that collaborates, educates, and inspires, even during a pandemic. PIP's mission is, we bring people together by using old printing presses to amplify new voices, share knowledge, and spark creativity. And I will say that we have had the honor of having the West Coast Letterpress printers visit us here at Hamilton many times when you were SVC and others. And I want to say I'm so excited for what Jenny and the entire group at PIP is doing. We're honored to know you. We're just glad you're our friends. And thanks for being here today and sharing so much.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Jim, and thanks, Hamilton, for these wonderful ham hangs. Also a silver lining of the pandemic. It's been a wonderful thing each week to revisit with all the cool people that we know from Hamilton. Like Stephanie said, SVC loves Hamilton, and we have gone to a lot of Waze Goose over the years as a whole group, and we're notorious for taking those jump shots in front of the various signs. So I had the pleasure of speaking at a Waze Goose maybe 3 years ago. I can't remember the exact year. And at the time, my presentation was all about how SVC had stayed relevant in Seattle because Seattle was facing this cultural shift. We had become this epicenter of technology, and somehow our program was still thriving. And so I wanted to point out the ways that the SVC Letterpress program had kind of innovated as a community space in spite of all of the change around us. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of that because I think it leads really well into how we've evolved during the pandemic. And please, please, please interrupt me and ask questions. I really don't want to just talk for the next 30 minutes. So I would love for you to just pipe up if you have anything to add or any questions. So one thing we did from year one is we would have Waze Goose of our own. So going back to 2002, I think was our first one. And I just need to show you some of our early Waze Goose keepsakes. We would bring people into the shop and this was printed on our iron hand press. It's the newspaper sheet. This is when we were doing steamroller printing. Oftentimes, Carl Montford and I would collaborate on these. So I don't know if you can read this, but it says, celebrating 10 years of remaining 100 years behind the times. Again, printed on the iron hand press. Another, and then it says, another Montford Wilkson production for the keepsake. And then this is my absolute favorite of all time. Typeset by Annabelle Larner, who's here today. And it's just like a poetic masterpiece, I think. So I'll let you read that. And it's very silent because everybody has their mics on mute, but feel free to react. This is really weird to be here with everybody silent.
Love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And then we would do these collaborations with Evolution Press here in Seattle. From the very beginning, they would print our Waze Goose invitations, and we'd have different people design them over the years. And here's one I got to design, like a golden ticket. I just love it so much. Keegan Wankman designed this one. It's just a masterpiece.
Woot woot.
And
And
then
what you can't see on that one is how thick it is. That one is like
It was-
really juicy.
yeah, on Riche paper. So Riche was our paper sponsor that year. Here's a great one. It's a die cut, foil stamp, duplex, everything. But it says, "Write this way, get your hands dirty." And it fit into an envelope. So we were able to mail these out, but they're just really fun props.
Mhm.
And then this is a great one that Amy Redmond designed. I thought this was like the pinnacle of the Waze Goose at SVC, because we also screened Pressing On at the IMAX theater the day before. So like the whole Letterpress community got to go sit in a movie theater together and see it like take up the entire field of vision. And we all got kind of motion sick. Really, really great. So that was, I'd say, the pinnacle that weekend. So we did a lot of community engagement that way. Another thing SVC did over the years was promote craft. So we had this very comprehensive curriculum with our classes were, oh, thanks, Yvonne. Our classes were quarter long, so like 10 weeks. And intro students would have to set things by hand. There was no computers allowed. We'd have Letterpress 2 and Letterpress 3. It was just a really, really great curriculum, and students stuck around for years and became teaching assistants and instructors. Another thing that was really great is we would get, in the later years, invite guest artists to teach workshops, like masterclass level workshops. And I have to say, most of the networking we were able to do was thanks to Hamilton. So a lot of people that we met over the years at the Hamilton Waze Goose also visited Seattle and got to teach workshops. And actually, that's what saved our butt during the pandemic too. So I'll get into that later. And then the third thing that really kept us relevant at SVC were our community collaborations. And, you know, the Waze Goose was really great. And it got the general public into the shop. But the thing that suddenly leveled us up in terms of relevance and impact was doing these community collaborations, like with Seattle Children's Hospital and Seattle Arts and Lectures and their Writers in the Schools program. And this is the first ever portfolio that we did. We did it 10 years now. We're about to kick off our 11th year. And I'm going to read you a poem, okay? Just so you get an idea of how impactful it is to use your printing press and amplify the voices of a child who may not, who may be having trouble seeing themselves as anything other than a patient at the time. So this one, this was our very first year. This one is by Maga Barzalo Sakamtikum, and she is indigenous. I think she's from the Spokane Nation, I think. I'll have to go back and check. But here's her poem called Where I'm From. I am from the beat of drums and songs to be sung, beautiful rain sparkling down. I am from laughter, movies, a drip of water, leaping high against the slaughter. I come from cracked concrete, rose petals falling into the deep. I am from nights of weeping, tears of joy. I am from sighs of relief and disappointed moans. I have seen the world, it's in my grasp. I come from needles and blood. I come from shortcuts, gangsters and thugs. I come from words and music, so sorely missed. Least of all, I am cancerous. Tree climber, jump roper, skydiving, playing poker, feel my feet against my land, holding the soil in my hand. I'm from raised voices and hard fights. I am from those red and blue lights. Broken glass, keys on the floor, a lit TV dinner, too early at 4. I am from white sheets, white pillows, white blankets, and white rooms, rooms with a window through. I am from denial, acceptance, and anger too. I won't back down from you. I am from stubbornness and spitfire. I am from refuse to give up. I am not just cancerous. You see all this, all things are true. I have my native blood. My life is not written in stone. It's written in the sky, the breeze, water and fire, the morning. There's nothing you can take from me as long as earth is alive. So amazing stuff. Here is another example. I'm not going to read it, but I think those of you who are fans of wood type and who isn't will appreciate this treatment. So this is Who Am I by Jesse Witzel, age 14. And the various things, you know, he's speaking very strongly that he's more than just a patient, right? Anyway, I just think that this use of our printing presses is just the most meaningful thing we could be doing. And it's something that we hope that we can continue to do. Here's another example. So I'm sure many of you know Juliette Chen, who designed the Lashutzi typeface that was also cut in wood type at Hamilton. So she was actually able to use it digitally to print this broadside. One more thing about meaning. At SVC, we started inviting designers and residents to print at SVC for a year or two, take our classes, learn how to be really solid printers. And I'm sorry, some questions are coming through in the chat, but if you can unmute and just ask them, it would be way easier for me to answer them in real time.
If Ray,
Jenny.
oh, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah.
No, I think Ray was about to ask the question.
Go ahead, Ray. Did I not do a good job of explaining how Children's Hospital works? I'm sorry.
Who prints it?
Fast. Yeah. So what happens is the children work with poets in residence at Children's, so they're often in palliative care or they're just there long term, and this is part of the programming at Seattle Children's. There's poets that work with them to get their words down on paper, and then we as a community gather together, we choose the poems, and then we print them each year in a portfolio, and the portfolios go to Seattle Children's, they go to the poets' families. It's kind of this beautiful legacy building thing for the kids. And they go on tour all over Seattle public libraries. They go to SAM, Seattle Art Museum, every year. So it's just like a hugely impactful thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm so glad we circled back on this, is I hope that those of you who do or have the potential of collaborating in your community, consider working with writers more, because when you start to work with poetry, suddenly your circle of influence isn't just people who appreciate print, like, you know, when we were doing our Waze Goose. Suddenly it's anybody who appreciates the power of the written word, and that's everyone, right? So that's just a really important point I want to drive home, that the printing press and writers, like, that's just a really meaningful and important partnership to maintain. So I was getting into designer in residence. So our first designer in residence was Glenn Fleischman, and he printed a book on Glenn, do you want to pipe up? But it's like the intersection of type and technology, which at the time was just perfect for SVC. There's Glenn.
Oh, oops. I'm on the wrong mic. Hold on a second. There we go. I'm a technology person. Sure I am. Yeah, I've been, hello everybody. I've been working as a journalist and able to fool publications into letting me write about things like the history of curly quotes and you know, how do you archive a website for 10,000 years? So I took some of that work that I owned rights to and translated it into you know, photopolymer for the innards of the book, and did some laser cutting and worked with Jules Spey to get the she did the binding on it, and the whole SVC group, now PIP, came together to help me with the folding and gathering, which was amazing. I needed a village to fold the book. So yeah, it was an incredible, incredible year of my life. Thank you for letting me do it.
Nice, Glenn. And then Claudia Castor-Luna was our designer residence afterwards, and we did another Kickstarter funder book called One River, 1,000 Voices. And she was, or she is still for a couple more days, the Washington State Poet Laureate. And over the course of her term and her residency at SVC, she wrote this epic poem about the Columbia River that winds its way through Washington State, and specifically about what it means to the people who have lived on its banks forever. And the poem takes like 10 minutes to read. It is so beautiful. And every time she reads it, she gets a standing ovation. It is quite the experience to hear her read it. But I just want you to see the experience of this book. It's a 5-foot-long accordion, and it unfurls like a river, you know, all the way to its terminus. And yeah, we're super proud of this project. All right. Let's see.
Jenny, do you want to talk at all about our next collaboration with the next Poet Laureate?
Sure. So something else that we do are these Poem in Your Pocket Day things, and it's something Claudia spearheaded when she was our designer in residence, but we're going to continue doing it with all future Poet Laureates. And it's these little poems that are distributed all over Washington in independent bookstores for Poem in Your Pocket Day and National Poetry Month. And this is the first one we did. I couldn't dig up the second one, but they're basically little mini broadsides. They're adorable, and they spotlight maybe a youth poet. Usually it's a translation poem. The new Poet Laureate is from the Lummi Nation, and she was able to spotlight the work of a youth poet, and I'll unveil it on the new website, but it's getting printed next week.
When is Poem in Your Pocket Day? I want to do it.
Yeah, we should all do it. I mean, it's nationwide, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
When?
26th. But you should just like do it all through the month of April. Actually, you know,
Cool.
we should always have poems in our pockets, right? Let's see, what else? Okay, so then the pandemic hit. So let's get to the nitty gritty here. We had all this great programming. We had just kicked off Words of Courage again, which is what we're now calling our Children's Hospital project. And suddenly we lost access to our space, and people couldn't actually come in to print their broadsides. Classes had to come to an abrupt halt. It was really disconcerting, and we didn't know how long it was going to last. And eventually we just had to cancel a bunch of classes, you know, midway through, which was a super huge bummer. But eventually we were like, you know what, like the show must go on. And we came up with this concept of long distance letterpress classes. And all that networking that I did at Hamilton, like really saved my ass, because I was able to reach out to some of the printers that I could see were actually doing a good job with the technology. For example, Mary Bruno, who started doing her pandemic story time. I hope you guys have seen that. It's just amazing. And I thought, you know what, Mary would do a killer job with an online class. And so she was our first long distance letterpress instructor, and she absolutely killed it. And the idea of long distance letterpress is it's just 2 hours, and it's highly choreographed. And we pick topics that are actually probably better off demonstrated than done as a group anyway. And using that format to be able to ask questions live, actually be able to visit people in their studios. I mean, that's a silver lining. You're not limited to the stuff that's available in whatever school that person is teaching in. And then Jessica Spring came up with the fantastic idea of mailing out the workshop keepsake to all of the students. So there is this tangible thing. I think it's really cool. Yeah, so that's something that is here to stay for sure. Well, I'll talk more about upcoming LDLs a little later, but I just want to say the order of events. In July, SVC said to us, we're going to break our lease. You need to move all this stuff out. I'm sorry, but we just can't keep paying rent on a space that no one's going to use for the foreseeable future. They said, we're just going to move completely online, which for SVC is also a huge change, because they, over the years, really prided themselves on personal connection and, you know, pressing the flesh with other professionals and networking and that sort of thing. And so for them, that was a huge shift, but they did a really good job. And I think it's thanks to the support that SVC gave all of their instructors learning how to teach online, that we were able to do long distance letterpress as well as we did. So anyway, we had to get out, and it was it was awful. I mean, after 19 years, to realize that the end, this was it, you know, and reaching for a solution, like what can we still do? An idea that a friend who's not a printer suggested was, well, you know, this person might have a little space here, and this person might have a little space there, and you know, there's no reason to completely get rid of everything or put everything in storage. You can still use it. And so that idea percolating in my head, I reached out all over our local community, the same people who would help us source the equipment as we're acquiring it. They are fostering it now. So before a lot of people joined, Heidi Hesfeld, who's here, Heidi, you can unmute and just show the iron hand press behind you. So Heidi's one of our press foster parents who took on one of SVC's presses temporarily until we can reform. And yeah, look at that.
Can you see it?
With Carl's bowler hat.
I can't tell if I'm showing it to you properly here.
Yeah, it's good,
Can you
Heidi.
walk over there?
Yeah. Yeah, so the press foster
Can you see it
parents
now?
was, yes. Nice.
Okay.
And Heidi's got an amazing shop. Heidi, you should post your website in the chat.
Okay, I will. Thanks.
And then, you know, people like Amy Redmond and Laura Bentley and Annabelle Larner, who are all way more, I think Heidi might be pinned right now. Annabelle and Laura and Amy, who are way more organized than I am, really saved the day with, you know, inventory and planning. And we worked together for a couple weeks. I mean, we had to turn this around really fast, but we secured homes and put a lot of stuff into storage that belonged to the teaching shop, like our type collection and that sort of thing. Stephanie, can you unpin or unspotlight Heidi, please?
Yeah, she isn't, but you are now spotlighted. Now I'll
Okay.
remove that in case anybody else pops up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or so anyway. So we successfully made that transition. We moved out, and right away I turned around and I applied for fiscal sponsorship with a local organization called Shunpike. So Shunpike is a 501c3 that exists to provide nonprofit status to smaller arts organizations. And they accepted my application. And by the time we wrapped up Words of Courage in various studios, we were officially partners in print. So it has a very happy ending.
Yeah, and wasn't that that was our 10-year anniversary that we did Words of Courage in 2020.
Yeah.
And we didn't get, yeah, we had to do it all kind of remotely, which was crazy, as that was our 10-year anniversary of this project, but it worked.
Carrie, you should speak up, because sometimes I'm not seeing the chat and sometimes I am, but Carrie says—
You're making such good points, though. I wanted to hear more. If you could talk about the process for fiscal sponsorship. I am in process of building a community print shop here in Syracuse finally, and there's a lot of bits and pieces.
Yes.
So
yeah, so it's like a baby step to becoming your own nonprofit. You find an organization that's willing to be the nonprofit, and you're like a program of that organization, and all the money runs through them. There are only a handful of places like Shunpike, but Fractured Atlas is another one, so you should search them.
there's an organization here in town, CNY Arts, here in the Central New York area. They do fiscal sponsorship.
There you go.
What kind of questions are they asking? It's not obviously fledged at all.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure every place has a different application process, but it was a pretty involved application where we had to explain our programs. We had to show them a budget, which I got a lot of help on, because like I've never had to think about what the budget would be. I've been writing SVC's coattails for 19 years at that point. Like I had never needed to think about that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I think, Carrie, there are a lot of people in our community that would be so happy to help you with that process.
Yeah. Like I was going to have my first workshop last April. That didn't happen. So now I'm rebuilding, and I even had business insurance for the first time ever. But now I'm starting all over again, and well, it's looking very promising to do my first workshop in the fall. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. I'm so happy for you, Carrie. That's so great. So yes.
Jenny, I just wanted to say, and what's funny is fiscal sponsorship, when I first heard about it, it sounds like they give you money, that's not the case. Just to correct any perceptions, because everyone I talk to is like, oh, so you're underwritten by them. And it's like, well, no, they just handle all the money processing. So they make sure that, so we're a program of them, and any donation goes through them, and they make sure that everything is done legally and follows all the rules, so that donations are tax deductible. So
Okay, that would be great if somebody else did that, so I could just be on press.
yeah.
That's the idea. That's the idea. Like, you can focus on your art and they take care of the business side. But as Annabelle, as our leadership team, Annabelle and Laura and Amy and Suki know, it is actually a shit ton of work. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, trial by fire this last couple of months.
What's new?
Yeah. Well, so here's the big announcement. We just rolled out a website. It's partnersinprint.org. We are rolling out so many long distance letterpress classes. The first one, we're going back to our OG teacher, Mary Bruno. And Mary, this is also our first like super beginner level long distance letterpress. So absolutely anybody can take this intro to lino carving class. You do not need to even have a shop or have a press. She's gonna show her tips on transferring by hand. She's gonna talk about 2-color registration. It's gonna be awesome. I'm not sure why the spotlighting isn't moving, you guys. Is everyone seeing Carrie's cute face this whole time? Anyway, is there a coupon code for this ham hang to use on the PIP site? Oh, huh.
Frank, we just spent the past 2 months putting a website together
Yeah.
and a newsletter. Give us a hot second to think one more step ahead.
I only say it because when it popped up, there was a coupon code. And then I lost that.
We will look into that.
Okay.
Oh,
All
that's
right.
odd. I don't know what coupon code.
Maybe Stephanie, do you know anything about that? Because that's not on our site, because you had to register through Hamilton.
No. We'll take that offline. I know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So anyway, Mary is not on the hang. She's on the road today. But I just wanted to plug her class. Mike is on the call. Mike, do you want to unmute and talk about your upcoming class?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So yeah, what we're talking about, we're doing a class called Uncommon Color, and we've done it a couple times already, and it's been really interesting with some really great people. What we've been doing is printing. I carved this lino block print, and we've been exploring different colorways with the same 4-color lino block or set of blocks, and talking about different ways of approaching color from sort of a painterly sense, where we can explore subtleties and nuances and split fountains and overlaying them and printing 4 colors wet on wet. We get to actually kind of do this all together while everybody's kind of observing the process. So I don't know if that sort of sums it up, but it's about exploring the feeling of color and where that takes us to new places.
Oh, and he does it so well. Thank you, Mike.
Class, and it was great, Jenny. I took that class and it was great. It was a lot of fun. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, everybody needs to take that class.
Yeah, I'll second that. That's great.
Oh,
Thank you guys. It was great to have you all on.
It was great.
Rebecca is also on, and she's got a class the weekend after, or sorry, the Monday, about a week after Mike's. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, so I'm going to be teaching a class called photorealistic letterpress, and I taught it before for SVC. And I go through my, I talked a lot about my 4-color process on the ham hang I did a month or so ago. And so it'll be a deep dive into my process. I'll be printing, I'll have a Vandercam or 2, and you'll get a fabulous keepsake or maybe more than 1. So there you go.
Thanks, Rebecca. And then also Jessica is teaching.
Howdy. For Daredevil Letterpress, we start with some historic examples. I do a slideshow of the way things were done sort of traditionally, and talk about tools that you might not know that you have at the ready to set type, metal type, or wood type in circles, on angles. And then the keepsake is hard to see here, but this is the finished piece. Wah, wah. So that is super fun and super fast paced, but perfect. Even if you don't have Daredevil furniture, we look at other ways to set type and curves and circles.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yep.
And then last but not least, we have a lot of classes, but I decided I just want to tell you everything that's happening through the month of May. Chris Chandler, I think, is in the call. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello. Hi. We're doing a class on modular typography. We're going to be talking about these blocks we're making, how we make them and how we prep with them.
Hubba hubba. Whoa.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the 24 by 24. We did a whole 2 fonts with these things, so they're pretty big. Then we're going to talk about how we take these blocks and we layer them with colors. Talk about some of our design techniques here. And then we're going to talk about, I know this is kind of a big block, so we do have a system where people can make this at home with a provisional press that we put together. And then we're also going to talk about making these big designs and wheat pasting them. And then at the end, we have something called, we're calling it design bingo for now, for lack of a better name, but where the class can put together a billboard with us here in the studio and design that and lay it out on the floor. So that's what we have set up. So hopefully people can join us for the class. Thank you.
Chris, thanks. So Chris taught a workshop for us at SVC, and I can just tell you he over delivers in every way. So you better sign up for this class. It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait for the keepsakes too. And there's lots more instructors on the roster and still to be posted even. I've been fangirling all month. Like, I get just so excited every time I think about all the great classes that we're going to be able to offer through this format, and being able to visit people in their studios and see how they do things. And also give access to people who can't go to these community shops and take classes from these folks. So that's LDL. In the time we have left, I want to stop talking, and I would love for us to actually have a back and forth about community shops and what are some of the strengths and things we can do now that we have these limitations of the pandemic. I mean, I've outlined a couple, like innovating in online learning and doing projects with the community and putting your presses to work for the good of the community. But I'd love to hear what everybody else is up to. Thanks, everybody.
That was amazing. Thank you. Yes, please feel free to unmute.
Standing O.
We just saw a really big standing O.
That's right.
Ah.
But
Somebody's trying to take away Jessica Spring's puns.
Never.
Rude. I have a question. Can I, do I have the floor?
You do.
Go for it, Barb.
Yeah, Barb.
Hi, this is so exciting. I'm just trembling with like what I want to take now. The pandemic has actually been amazing in some ways to help us get to things that we otherwise couldn't, get to so easily, even though Seattle's not that far away. It's just, anyway, what I was going to say, one thing that I would be curious about, if anyone would be interested, is like, getting somebody just to lock up type. I know there's a lot of playful stuff, obviously, that's happening that turns into posters and all this, but I've always wanted to just hang around a press with some of the people even that I studied with and just talk about like good lockup procedure, good, maybe problematic lockup procedure where you've got, maybe you're trying to print a block and some type, and what does that look like? So, I know that sounds a little bit maybe more boring, but it would be so useful for those of us printing books, and probably for everybody in some way. So I'm just throwing that out there as a, and it could just even be a community chat kind of thing led by one person.
Yeah, Barb, I'm so glad you mentioned the community chat thing, because that's one thing I forgot to mention, and some programming that we're able to do because our programming is all online, until we have a space again, are these shop talks. And that's the perfect topic is lockup. That would be an amazing shop topic. The idea of shop talks are, they are kind of getting rid of that whole idea that there's an expert and they're going to teach you the right way to do something. Instead, it's like, everybody's welcome. Let's all talk about all the different ways that we do something and learn from this collective pool of knowledge. We're kicking off our first shop talk on Wednesday, and instead of someone talking to everybody, there's just a moderator. So our moderator on Wednesday is Jennifer Graves, and she's just there to keep the conversation moving. And the idea for shop talks came from Jessica Spring, because we were noticing after her classes, like students were just staying on the call. They were asking questions that had nothing to do with the topic of the class. They just wanted to talk shop, desperately, because this was the opportunity they had to network with other printers and hear what everybody else was doing. And we're like, well, I don't think there exists right now a real-time conversational forum on a certain topic like that.
I love that.
And so we started shop talks. And so Jessica's going to lead one the next time. It'll be, I think we're going to do them on a 2-week cadence. And hers is going to be on ink.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we mind meld.
Say what?
What times will they be? What
Um,
times will they be?
They're every Wednesday from 10 to
11.
10 to 11. They're every Wednesday from 10 to 11, and you can just go to our website at Shop Talks. I think we put it in the link in the chat, but also you all can email us if you have ideas about other topics that we'd want. You can just email us at info@partnersinprint.org. At hello@partnersinprint.org, excuse me.
And shop talks are free.
This is so great.
That's the other big thing, is they're free. Yeah. But I think, long distance letterpress is pretty cheap too. And then we also have a sliding scale too. That's something that we weren't able to do so much as SVC, but now that we are a nonprofit, it's definitely baked into our mission. that we're trying to make everything as accessible as possible, reducing barriers as much as we possibly can, and just starting off on the right foot. On our new website, there's always an option for reduced tuition if that's what you need to choose.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I have a question. What I've found a lot of times is that modern kids sometimes get frustrated with how long it takes or hung up on how it's supposed to look and they can't do exactly what they think it's supposed to look like. How do you deal with that?
Oh, like when you're teaching and someone, okay, like a first-time printer, I know exactly the scenario you're talking about, Carrie, because it happens in every intro to letterpress class, where people have this idea and they've never actually printed something. They have an idea of what they want it to look like, but they've never troubleshooted something before. Because they've never printed before, they don't even grasp the limitations of the medium yet. And so I always have to talk them down. Like sometimes there are tears, but just, saying that you have so much to learn and cut yourself some slack and learn, by doing, and don't put so much pressure on yourself for this very first project, and there are always other opportunities to improve. And every time you print something, you build on that knowledge. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done in our intro to letterpress class is that I do tell students no computer to start, because inevitably they'll say, this doesn't look like what I did on the computer. And there's this opportunity to just discover, right? Like you need to be able to explore in our shop. And so right from the get-go, 20 years ago, Jenny made it a thing where like, just take that first class, take that first open studio to just explore what's in our foundry, in our type cases, and just look through it, because you're going to discover something that's going to spark an idea that you never would have thought of had you been on the computer to begin with. And you're going to see the difference in your work. So encourage exploration.
Yeah, and I think what I'll do is just tell people right off the bat, before we even touch type, it's not going to be perfect. This is learning. Because they want to set like a whole page worth of type on their first thing, and I have to talk them down from that. And then, their spacing, like they get impatient. Come on.
This sounds like an awesome topic for a shop talk too. Just teaching letterpress.
One of the things that we do in our workshops is we won't even let students sketch. You have to put it in your head and hold it there. Just let it evolve.
Ooh.
Nice.
One thing we do.
Okay. Teachers don't do that so well. Teachers want to sketch.
Oh, I know. Teachers don't like to learn, do they? They have a hard time sometimes.
No comment.
That was one of my most challenging classes ever.
Ouch.
One thing we do is we have people print one word before they move on, because that way, and it only takes, 45 minutes, but it's like, oh, what is inking like? What is pressure like? Because we're using, we have 12 show card presses. So do one before you move up, and then that way they can get started there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, this idea that can I use a different medium to learn that medium is, it's a bit like saying, can I use a digital camera to learn about film? Well, not really, right? So I think it's just an understanding that this is not the medium that you typically use. So be prepared for the time that it's going to take to introduce yourself to this new thing.
I often get a class to set one word but put it together in a poster, and so it ends up being sort of accidental poetry, but it forces them to work together and also be confined by the space on a single page, which is a really interesting process, but keeps it simple enough just having to set one word.
We also kind of find that, especially with the kids, just pulling a print and watching it come off the press can suddenly help people realize how exciting and fun it is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And of course it doesn't work for everybody, but that magic of coming off the press, right?
One of the things that Jeff Barlow, who teaches typography at the School of Visual Concepts, one of the things he does is he takes his students, when we've got a physical space, he takes them into the typography, into our type studio, and they will each set a quote from a movie. And then, like Mike just said, put it together as one big broadside. And that's how they get to learn how you really can focus on type in a particular way that deserves the attention that we are trying to teach as typographers and designers and printers.
I'm scrolling through the chat and I just want to back up. I don't think I did a very good job of articulating what happened once SVC decided to move online and Partners in Print broke off. So SVC is still a thriving school. They just don't have classrooms anymore. And they donated all of the letterpress assets to Partners in Print. So we love SVC and we will continue to partner with them however it makes sense. But it's actually been super exciting to evolve from being a for-profit school to a nonprofit arts organization, and all of the possibilities that opens up for us for collaboration with other printers and accessibility and partnering with all of you. So super exciting times.
And we can't wait to have an actual space again. We don't know when that will be, but we're keeping it on our radar.
Mm-hmm. Is anyone else on this call also, running a community shop? And let me know, what are you guys up to? I know some of you are.
We don't have a community shop yet, but we have a local arts center, and about a year and a half ago, I donated a little etching press that I never used, and we're trying to start a community thing, but unfortunately COVID has just kind of stopped it in its tracks. So we're kind of in the same boat. It's like there and kind of ready for people to start doing some lino cut prints and stuff, but there's no access to the building really yet. So it's we hear you on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been some exciting ways that we've figured out how to print together apart. So for example, there's print exchanges where we all print on a theme, or there's also an example where there's a need in the community and you get everybody in their various shops printing for that cause or that prompt. So, using your presses to amplify whatever is relevant at the time. That's something that we've been doing over the course of this pandemic. And it doesn't require a centralized space. And I think, a lot of people on this call have done similar things.
Yeah, and I was going to say, just for being together with this group for an hour, Denny, we had 20 minutes of amazing conversation and lots of stuff in the chat and lots of stuff happening on the video itself. So I'm just so excited for what that means for the letterpress community and what you guys are doing. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, Hamilton, you guys are doing such a great job. This is such a fabulous platform. I appreciate the forum, like the ability to broadcast what's going on in Seattle. And, you know, you guys are just killing it every day, connecting people all over the world. And yeah, hats off to you guys. Keep it up.
We're all in it together. So thank you, Jenny. I'm so glad that we can all, we feel slightly closer together. I think I've talked to more letterpress printers this year than I do in any other year, which is weird. So I think that'll be probably one of the things that changes post-pandemic world, right? Is we'll remember to reach out more.
Yeah, and Hamilton succeeds because of people like you guys as well. I mean, what else made it except the contributions of like everybody on this call, you know?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to wrap up because we're coming up to our hour. Jenny, I want to say thank you so much. That was more than inspirational, and I cannot wait to see all the wonderful things that you continue to do now under the name of Partners in Print. So hats off to you. Hats off to your amazing team, because I know it's not just you. You are amazing, and so is your team. So I want to say to all the educators, instructors that are going to be doing classes at PIP, we're so glad that you joined us today. And everyone who's making PIP happen, keep it up. It's a lot of work. So thanks for being there for the community.